our selected system is the microsystem, and we have case study number 1, which is supporting Ignacio. A mother discovers how to help her son succeed.
The suggested theoretical perspectives that are talked about in this case are motivation to learn, which is talking about Ignacio, the student's motivation to learn and what gets him interested. Ethnic and racial diversity, which is looking at like cultural differences and similarities. And then families, time, and learning, which is how time affects the learning of Ignacio.
The major issues that we're going to be looking at are understanding the children's motivation to learn and develop literacy skills and how family and community can be helpful. Also, understand the connection between background, circumstance, and behavior.
All right. So the situation in our case study is Ignacio and his mother, Patty, just moved to America from Mexico. And Ignacio just started preschool at his new school and is struggling with reading in the context of lack of information across family, preschool, and community resources. Ignacio does get excited about reading time in Spanish, and Veridiana and Mrs. Naylor have different perspectives. Veridiana is the bilingual aide, and they have different perspectives on the situation.
So some of the contributing factors to this case are Patty, Ignacio's mom, has to take public transit to get everywhere. And so she's kind of at um, the mercy of the public transportation system. She also is unable to get a library card from the library to be able to check out books because of documentation issues. She's undocumented. Patty is also working lots of jobs. And then taking public transit in between. So there's some time poverty going on here. Additionally, at the school, the teacher's inexperience with co-teaching. Mrs. Naylor and Diana are not super in sync with teaching at the preschool. And then lastly, the implicit bias of Mrs. Naylor and her feelings on having to teach a student who is learning English and is a newcomer at the preschool.
So, some possible next steps that could be considered that mom should get a library card and receive books in Spanish, and or the teacher could check out Spanish books for the classroom so that while Ignacio's at school, he can read some more books in Spanish or have those read to him. Co-teaching training should take place for the teacher and the aide where they can build on one another's skills and actually know what those skills are, and know how that they can plan out their day. While one teacher is doing one thing, the other teacher should be doing another thing. And this would really help Veridana for her skills to be valued and noticed and accepted. And then the teacher and aide should be able to be given the opportunity to shadow one another, like co-teaching teams, like another co-teaching team that is successful, so that they can understand how best to do that and be successful in that. Also, school staff should communicate with mom about potential resources that are available. The co-teaching team should consider a home visit to understand more about the student's cultural background. This could also really greatly help the main teacher to the content teacher to empathize with what the family is going through. And then systems should be put in place for families who are bilingual to provide extra assistance as needed, such as like a more detailed inventory when students are registering for school in terms of like what families need, specifically language services. The school might consider offering or requiring teachers to participate in multilingual professional development. The librarian could publicize Spanish reading hours and other resources available using Father Benedict to reach those in the community.
All right. right, so to replay the case from a different perspective, we imagine that Ignacio moves to his new school in America from Mexico. His mom completed a detailed language inventory, which revealed the need for the school to provide some language services for Ignacio. Prior to Ignacio's coming, Viridiana and Mrs. Naylor created a plan, including Patty, Ignacio's mom, to help best welcome Ignacio. Through these conversations, it was revealed that Ignacio loves reading Spanish books, poetry, and songs. Because he loved these, Viridiana and Mrs. Naylor contacted the local library and checked out several of these resources. In addition, the two worked together to determine what Ignacio's daily routine would be. They knew how to do each one of these steps as a result of a professional development that they attended over the summer together, specifically geared towards team teaching multilingual students. The training focused on how to build upon bilingual students' past knowledge and life experience. Thus, the two had a mutual goal of honoring students' home culture, as well as helping students be successful in learning English. Patty receives bi-weekly check-ins with Viridiana to communicate how Ignacio is doing in class and to share possible resources that could further help the family. Patty is also able to share how Ignacio is doing at home. When parent-teacher conferences come around, Patty was able to easily make the conference due to the Zoom option.
Okay, so looking at the bigger picture, we we're looking at how the educational policies and things like that affected this case in particular. One of the things that we think could really make a difference here is access to library cards. And one of the questions in the book specifically asked about recent immigration policies contributing to undocumented families' distrust of formal institutions. And as we were discussing this, we thought that that was especially relevant in this case because if they're unable to get a library card because they don't have proper documentation, there's obviously going to be distrust, and they're not even going to try to go figure something out because they're worried about what repercussions are for being undocumented. So something that needs to happen is being able to have more access to library cards. Something that we talked about was individual libraries coming up with their own programs to be able to allow people to get library cards without documentation, or having more like reading programs or things like that where people could access things at the library and maybe not even check things out and take them home. Something else that we talked about was community collaboration. Within this case study, we saw Father Benedict, so someone in a church community, as well as Christina, the librarian, and then Viridiana, that girl, how they all were working on things from their own, like in their own kind of siloed situations. But if we could get them all to collaborate together, they're all working towards the same things and would be able to contribute more together as a whole. Another thing that we talked about was creating systems at the school. We already mentioned this, having home surveys and things like that that go into more depth so that it's not just, oh, English isn't the first language spoken at home, moving right along. So making sure that there are systems that identify students who are in need and then doing things to help those students. We did write political overhaul of the immigration process, which is probably not realistic, but that's something that could be considered as well. And then the last thing that we talked about was widespread acceptance of bilingual education. One of the problems that we did see in this case was Mrs. Naylor's attitude towards Ignacio and education in educating like newcomers and those who are bilingual, those who are trying to learn English. And so just trying to help teachers have that empathy and that compassion, so that as they're teaching, they're looking at it from a frame of caring for the students, instead of looking at those students as being more work for them. So that was our case. And thank you so much.
Thank you.